morning. And before I do the introductions, very quickly, so students, if you have any questions, please post them anytime. You have a Q&A window where you can post them, or don't be shy. We have a relatively small group today. You can raise your hand. You have a button that looks raise your hand, and maybe we'll add you directly to our room and you can engage with the presenter directly. And so we have here a very special guest, Mr. Gustavo Abib from Brazil. He is the founder and CEO, as I understand, right, of the company called OGG. And I like the company for the reason that it actually has a direct relation to what we do. So it's basically a company that supports education. And so here we not only have an interesting case that I can relate to, but also one that, for example, I feel we should support so that we sort of have ultimately have the same mission. And so Mr. Gustavo Abib is here to talk about his company, maybe a little bit about the history, the product. And we normally do it kind of in the form of an interview, but maybe if you want to start with a quick overview, just basic introduction before we get into the questions. So that would be probably best. Just a few kind of general introduction, and then we'll get to the interview part.
Okay. Thank you for you, Vas. I will tell a little bit about the OGG. That's the name of our company. I start my career as professor about 18 years ago in a business course here in Brazil. And during this time, to practice some concepts about business, we use a lot of case studies. And almost of the case studies came from other countries and other histories. And we have problem because at the time past, I teach in a small city, and we talk about big companies and different reality, different environment, and the students can't think about that because they don't know about the companies. And I start to think how to become this course a little bit more practice, how to practice the business concepts and how to make decisions. For instance, if you go to the lawyer course, they have some courts, they have a simulation about courts, and in the business we don't have that. So I think about how to bring this practice to the students. It was 18 years ago, and I started to make a small simulation in a spreadsheet, using spreadsheets. And after I met a guy who's a software programmer, software developer, and I talked with him about my idea. So the idea, I have the idea, and they have the knowledge how to the dreams become true. So this is how we start our company here. As I wrote in your document, this guy was very important for us because my dream is I want to develop a local software to have in my machine. And this guy told me, don't do that. Go to the web. And I said, no, guy, because we don't have good internet in Brazil. We still don't have it, but okay. But this guy told me, just go to the web, make your software as service, and you will be happy. And I said, no, it's not a good idea. But this guy convinced me to do that, and it was the best decision that we have in the company since we start our business. After that, we developed three softwares, one for strategic purpose, one for small and medium enterprise, and the last one for foreign trade or international business. And the last one we developed is for banking. It's to train executives in banking, but this is a different purpose. Okay, I think this is how we start our business here in Brazil. And
so, can you explain then to us more? So, what exactly do you produce? I know, obviously, but students here, we have different ages. So, when you say you write cases, what exactly does that mean?
Okay. We have a software for how can I say strategic purpose for MBAs. It's directed for MBAs and master and business courses. It's a kind of industry, and you simulate an industry. We have different scenarios for the different products you can use in the software, and we have it's a kind of, imagine you have a company and you are the CEO of this company. So the student will be the CEO of the company, and they will make some strategic and tactical decisions. That's it. The small and medium enterprise, it's a different software because you already have a company running, and you start to manage this company. It's similar of I think almost all kind of software you have in the market. It's the same model. You have a started company, okay?
So in your case, you write essentially simulation software, or you just write what they call case studies? So yours, is it just text, or it's more kind of like a simulation game?
It's a simulation game. It's a game, and for instance, for the first one, the strategic one, you will receive money, you receive a seed capital, and you have to buy machine, hire employers, you have to invest in marketing, you have to set up the price. It's a simulation. It's a full simulation, okay?
So for the younger students, basically, if they play all those strategy games on the computer where you have to invade a village or build a civilization, it's almost the same thing, just your objective is build a business, essentially, right?
Yes, we don't have it's a kind of civilization, but for only for business.
So
you start a
company.
Yes, and you have to manage that company.
Yeah,
it's like the real life.
Yeah, like real life. So it's simulated, but you pretend to be then the CEO. You buy all the supplies, you find the partners, you make decisions, and then you see what happens. So
yes,
practice there, so that when you one day become a manager, you essentially can make those decisions better with more people. Okay,
perfect. And usually you play with another team. You play with a team. So you are the marketing the CEO of marketing. The other one is CFO. The other one is responsible for the production. And then you are in a market, and you have some competitors in the same market. So it's like the real life.
And then how long does it take to play the game? I know that some of these simulations are only a few minutes. Some of them can go on for literally for months. And then again, some people can play individually. Others, it requires that there is a whole class. How does it, do you have different, or is it just a specific type? Can you give us more information?
Yes, depends the purpose of the simulation. If you're using the undergrad course, you can use for a semester, okay? Because you will use some, how can I say, you will teach some theories between the simulations. If you're using an MBA course, you can do in 16 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours. Mm-hmm. And if you do in executive training, you can do in 12 hours or 8 hours. The minimum is 8 hours because it's a little bit complex.
Mm-hmm. And then what subjects do you cover again? You said there was something business strategy, and there was also what, marketing today?
Yes, we have production. Mm-hmm. In the production, we have all kinds of PCP, planning of production. Okay, we have marketing, we have human resources, and we have financial.
Mm-hmm. So that's
all main areas that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And inside each one, you have a lot of decisions. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, in Xculture, the vast majority of our participants are MBA students and maybe business students, but we also have a growing group of non-student participants. So we have some, we call them professionals. So they may be 20, 30, 40 years old. They just do it for kind of experience. And we even have some pre-college teams this semester. So we have a few hundred of those. Okay. So the question is your software suitable or can be used by people who are not affiliated with universities?
They can. Mainly, we can use for executive training. Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
okay. We use for executive training, but it's out of university. So if you want to train your executives in decision practice, if you want to, how can I say, develop some competences like team building, something like that, you can use the software also.
Is the use of the software, does it require a presence of a teacher or some sort of a facilitator, or people just go online and play it?
Okay, we have both. We have both kinds of instructions. One for presentation, present professor, and we can do it 100% online. Don't worry, you can use online, no problem. But we need someone how to guide or to teach the students or to the participants.
Like a mentor or facilitator?
Yes, we have inside the software, we have frequent asking questions, we have the manual, but we need someone to guide the students. It's better.
Makes sense. So it's not quite the same as a video game where you just download the app and you start playing anytime you want, right? It's a little bit more serious, more.
Yes, it's a little bit more serious, and you can't play alone. You need to be in a team. Okay, we don't have this feature to play alone.
Here's an interesting question. After completing the game or simulation, do people get some sort of certificates, or is it not quite the same as a course?
They have the certificates, but the people who gave the certificates will be the university that buy the software. Okay, the software we have we have a future to make the certificate, but who will give the certificate will be the university or the trainer. Someone
yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah.
Will buy the software to use. Okay.
One thing, by the way, to consider maybe with Xculture, we get a lot of requests from students who ask if they can add the Xculture experience to their LinkedIn sort of profile, and so we say, sure, yeah, just write it. But apparently, some companies like Coursera, like some other ones, you can kind of have, like, you click and it adds almost like a badge or a certificate, with a click, officially certified by, I guess. So I'm not sure how easy it is to add something like that, but I know there is a big demand for this sort of thing for Xculture. And maybe, because I assume completing a semester-long simulation, that's probably no less than completing like a Coursera course in something, right?
Yes, it's a good idea. I never think about that.
Yeah, I checked it out some time ago, and apparently you can apply with LinkedIn, and so they check if you're a legitimate organization that provides some sort of training or courses. And if so, then they add like a button where you say, okay, when you build your resume on LinkedIn, apparently somewhere you can add like either badge or course completion, and it kind of adds it not just a line in the resume, but like it looks like a certificate. So I don't know.
It sounds interesting. It sounds interesting.
Yeah,
we have some requires from people who wants to play alone. I want to practice. I want to play alone. A long time ago we tried a model to play alone, but we didn't have enough success. So now we're working. We're trying to develop again for the people who play alone. I'm a student. I want to play alone, and it's okay for me. So we're trying to make this project live again.
Yeah, makes sense. Now we have a lot of questions about kind of general, more the company itself. First, clients and geography. So one, who are the clients? And you already said universities, maybe executive training, but apparently students want to know some examples. And then geography. Do you sell the products only in Brazil? Do people buy them overseas? Can people buy them from other countries? What languages are available? So basically geography and clientele map.
Okay, the majority of our clients are universities. Okay, from undergraduate courses and master and MBA courses. Almost 85% came from this kind of clients, and the 15% it came from executive training. Okay, executive training or consultants who wants the software, who needs the software or use the software for different purposes. And our clients are based only in Brazil. This year, we will have our first client outside Brazil in Colombia. We have a course in Colombia, and then we'll teach with the OGG simulation. For this reason, we translate the software. Now we have software in Portuguese and English. We're planning after in French, maybe. Not yet, but English and Portuguese. Today we have the software in 2 languages.
So with English, theoretically, you can scale up to any country on the planet as long as English is the operating language, right?
Perfect, yes, because it was the reason that we translate first to English.
Yeah, makes sense. And then in terms of competition, who are your main competitors, would you say?
Here in Brazil, when we start our company, we are only 3 competitors. But now we have a lot of softwares from everywhere. We have softwares from India, softwares from the United States. They translate to Portuguese, and then they are selling here in Brazil. So nowadays, I think we have more than 40 companies playing the same market.
Just in Brazil?
Yes, just in Brazil. Yes.
Whoa.
We have small companies and all kinds of companies, okay?
So the companies that write those simulations, I know that some publishers of business textbooks are trying to create something like that. I know the textbook I use in my own international business course, it kind of comes with a simulation that students can participate. But it sounds like also there are many small companies. I assume just a bunch of professors get together, write their own.
It's almost, yes, it's the same. It's small companies, but they are in the market. So
right. Yeah.
here in Brazil, we have some problem with pricification now, because now it's easy to sell by the internet. So we have some companies with low prices.
Interesting.
Very, very low prices.
Talking about prices, we actually have several questions. So how does it work in terms of the revenue structure? So who pays students, universities, how much things like this cost? Is it a subscription business or is it a kind of one-on-one basis? So how does it work with the revenue and payments for products?
Okay. In Brazil, the university pay for the software, okay, and give to professor to use in the classroom. So the university always pay for the software. The university or the company behind the university pays for the software. We have just one or two cases, classes that students pick up money with the students to pay the software and give the software to the professor. So mainly we have the university paying for the software. Nowadays we sell the software by license. Okay, so one license costs about $1,000.
For a license, that's what the university pays that and can use it as much as they want, or
no? For each classroom.
Each classroom.
Yes, each classroom. You have for example, for a semester with 60 students, you can use 60 students inside the license for $1,000.
For one semester.
For one semester, yes.
Does it matter how many students are in the class?
The maximum is 75.
So if it's more than
15 companies with 5 students in each company. The maximum is 75.
So it may be then up to what? So basically about $13 to $20 per student, right?
Yes. But if you have more than 1,000 students, the price will increase, of course.
Makes sense, absolutely.
For example, in Brazil, we have some universities that have 10,000 students on online courses. So the price is very, very low.
Exactly. What are the biggest challenges then that you're experiencing now in your sort of attempt to expand into new markets? What would you say is it? Should I give some examples? Funding, ideas, marketing. So what's the biggest obstacle?
Nowadays we have a big problem with the small companies and the price of the small companies. The price is very, very low, and it's a kind of cannibalization. We have this term in English, cannibalization. Yeah, okay. And then we have a big problem with that companies. So in Brazil, we have a big market, but now they are changing software for something like a small, big software or structured software like our software for any kind of software. Because behind the university, we have a government agency that it's not like it's a law. You have to use some software in the course. So doesn't matter if it's a good software or any kind of software. So if you want to pay $1,000 or $100, I prefer pay $100, and that's okay for me. So I think that this is the big problem.
So basically, competition, especially the smaller companies that are willing to accept lower price. Yeah.
Yes, the low price. And now we're trying to go abroad. So now it's our second challenge. Yeah. We're trying to go abroad. We start our company we built a company last year in Canada. We started a company there, and Canada will be responsible for sale overseas for us.
Where in Canada are you located, or have your people?
No. We have just a small. It's a home office in Montreal. Montreal. Yes.
Yeah, I spent a good portion of my life in Canada, but I was on the western coast, on the west coast.
On the west coast of Canada. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like in Canada, that's far, far away.
Yeah, far away. It's a huge country.
Yeah, Montreal to Vancouver. If you drive, you literally drive like 7 days nonstop just to get
Wow.
exposure. Well,
Wow.
Brazil is also a huge country, so I guess I just see that we have some students from countries like Georgia, for example, or Romania that you can cross easily
To cross the country
in a
in
couple
few
of
hours.
hours, or
Yes.
well, Romania maybe a little bit more than a couple of hours, but yeah. I'm not sure if it's a good time to talk about that, but I remember I wanted to buy a car in Montreal because, Quebec, the cars are for some reason the cheapest. I think the
Yes.
weather, they rust but more, I don't know. And I thought, oh, I would just fly to Montreal, buy a car and drive back. And then I look at the distance, driving it literally would be like a week of driving from Montreal back to
Wow.
Calgary. I was like, okay, no, that's way too
No,
much.
I'll buy my car. I'll buy the car here. It's easier.
Yeah. What is your cost structure? So how or what percentage of your total kind of operating cost is in development, maintenance, personnel, and what other expenses the company like this encounters? And I guess one of the students here is saying, so once you write the software, is there any maintenance cost?
Okay, we used to put about 20% of our revenues for new features in the software. So each year we release new features like BSC dashboard, something like that, new scenarios. So 20% of our revenues go straight to the new features development. Okay, and for maintenance we have. It's not so expensive because it's only a provider, internet provider. We are at Google Cloud.
But once the client buys the software, you don't need to provide any support, so they just
Yes. Okay. For the maintenance, software maintenance, but for the clients, we have we have support for the professors because before the professor use the software, they have a specific training here. We have to train the professor. So we have a manual for the professor, but we gave different kinds and tips. We gave some tips for the professor to how can the professor can maximize the use of the software. Okay, and we have a support. It's a active support. We enter in the simulation, analyze the simulation, and send reports in 15 or 21 days for each professor. So we have a team to do this in Brazil. Nowadays we have about 100 professors using the softwares. So we have two persons only dedicated for this job here in Brazil.
Yeah. Well, a related question then. So what part of your expenses are marketing? And then more importantly, how do you market your product? So do you go school to school or do you send out some flyers? How do you promote yourself?
Yes, to promote ourselves, we have a person to call the universities and, hi, my name is Luzia, I am the representative of OGG Simulação, and we have a different software for you. The marketing basic, we have Google Ads, a small, some advertisement on Google Ads, and one person here calling each university to offer the software.
So you actually,
nowadays we're trying outbound software, but we just started last week for outbound software to pick up some cold mailing, something like that. Yeah, it's not my area, but it's something like that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Students, if you have any questions, as I said, not only can you type them in the question window, but if you want to talk to the presenter, you can also engage by raising your hand, and we can add you to the webinar room. I would like to go a little bit more through the X-Culture Challenge. So just to recap, so the big question sort of is, how can OGG sort of expand into new markets? And so the students are asked to first think about the competition and think what are the sort of advantages and disadvantages, strengths and weaknesses of OGG versus the competition. Then they should think about the market that they need to, or that they think is the most promising market, so where the demand will be high, maybe competition low, people will be willing and able to pay for the product like that. And then obviously once they decide on the market, they should decide on the entry mode. Again, would it be exporting, where you just simply sell it to the clients? Would it be some sort of presence, like in Canada, you have some local personnel or office? Would it be some sort of a partnership, maybe with a publisher, maybe with a marketing company, maybe with a university, maybe with the education board, the Ministry of Education? Once they decide on that, obviously the question will begin, how do you promote the product? So how do you, again, send out letters, social media, direct contact, emails? Would be the best way to inform the potential users, clients, companies about this product. And so things like that. And so the question I have for you, do you have any specific tips or requests or maybe things that you want the students to focus on? And maybe even there are some things that you're not interested in. Like, for example, I know that one of the questions is always to describe the market in terms of, like country. And I know sometimes students put so much stuff in description of the country itself, like politics and religion. And I think in some cases it may be irrelevant. And at the same time, maybe don't talk enough about the specific competition in that market and things like that. So how can the students be useful to you? What exactly should they do so that in the end you can look at the reports that they send you and say, like, cool, this is interesting. I can definitely use it. What are your tips here?
If we look today to the active methodology, we have a pressure for active methodology. Different from the old school. I remember I was in my undergrad more than 20 years ago, and we don't have too much interaction. We don't have too much softwares. We just have pen and paper. Yes. Right. So nowadays we are looking for a new methodologies, new kinds of interact, new kinds to practice. So it will be good if the students can map these new features, softwares, and can see or can present for us the competitors or the trends in this area. It will be good because as I told you, every year we put new features in the software, new features in the simulations. And
so you're saying that even product development or design may be of interest to you as well, right? Not just the business.
Of course. Huh. New products in the market. What do we have new in the market? The trends in this area. In these serious games, business games, as we call here in Brazil. And then, if it's possible, what the market need. So, right. What the market expect for this kind of software. I don't know if it's possible, but if it's possible, it's a good idea.
Well, I think one point that we put in the challenge, and I strongly encourage students to try it, is sort of market research. And by that, we mean survey potential users. Yes. What happens in many cases in X-Culture, students would come up with what they think brilliant ideas, but they never test them. They never have a focus group or a client interview. And so what we always recommend that, like, for example, in the case of this company, you go and talk to a few professors. You all are at universities. You go and talk to your business professor and say, hey, professor, are you using any simulations? Yes or no? If yes, if no, why not? Too expensive. You don't know which ones are available. If yes, which ones do you use? How did you choose them? Why did you choose them? Have you ever heard about OGG? Would you be willing to take a look? Do you think it's a good product? Do you think it's a good price? Would you consider using that? And so by setting up a couple of interviews like that just for a few minutes, you will have a much, much better understanding as to how your client thinks. And obviously we'll be able to come up with much better ways to sort of, develop this sort of business. Because you can have all kinds of theories and you can think, oh, maybe marketing campaign through Facebook will be a brilliant idea. Everybody does it. Well, again, how do you find professors on Facebook? It's not such a big market. Maybe it's much cheaper just to send letters directly to the professors. So until you talk to them, you may not know. And so that's something that you definitely should do.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea because the professor will know, we use this kind of software. We need this type of software. It's a good idea.
Yeah. Rashik Angali is asking how the smaller companies can keep the price cheaper. Is it just an inferior product, less cost in advertisement, or something else?
The most of these companies don't have the support for professors. They just sell the software, and the license is yours. And if you have any problem, just mail me, and after some days I can answer to you. Right. But we have an active support for the professors. That's the reason.
No, that matters.
Imagine if you are a professor and you're on the classroom, and student asking, Professor, what happened here? What happened because I don't sell my products? And the professor just call us and we can check the simulation and give the answer to the professor. So it's the professor is more confident with the results. That's the reason that it's our business. Okay, it's our business model.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The reason.
Maliha Mehboob is asking if you're interested in the Asian market.
Yes, of course.
In fact, I know that many countries in Asia do offer especially business education in English. That's why we see a good growth in ex-culture participation. And in fact, quite a few countries, it seems like, especially once you get to MBA, most serious schools now offer them in English. So it seems to me like a good market.
It's easy. Now it's easy to translate the software because we have some structure to just put the language and we can translate. We have just to translate the reports and something like that. And the scenario, because the scenario have newspapers for the simulation, we have a manual, so we have to translate something like that.
Yeah, I see Friends Pulido is one of our most active participants, at least in the past seminars, just joined and says, I'm sorry I'm late, can you provide additional explanation? Friends, we are recording this meeting, so you can watch the recording, obviously, so we will not go through the basics, but good to see you or hear you here, so no worries. All right, so we tried to keep this meeting short, so it seems like we got all the information that we need. As always, if you students have any additional questions, you can send those questions. And Gustavo, what we do, so we know your time is very valuable. So instead of sharing your own contacts and instead of having you answer every question that you get from the students, I have my assistant who deals with the questions. And so most of the questions are repetitive, meaning that many teams would be asking same questions over and over again. And if we know the answer, let's say first time we didn't know, we ask you, but then once we know, we just simply copy and paste that answer so we don't have to waste your time. And for the students, one thing that you should notice, we have a frequently asked questions file for each company. So if you have a question, go and check that file first. If somebody asks that question, we would add it to the catalog. And so this way you don't have to contact the company each time and take their time. But then again, occasionally a question comes along that is different, something we don't know the answer, then in that case we'll reach out to you and ask that question. Hopefully you'll be able to answer by email or Skype. But as I said, in most of the cases, the questions are repetitive, so there will be probably more towards the end, but it shouldn't be too time consuming.
Okay, feel free to contact me if you need some information, additional information, feel free to contact, no problem.
Sounds good.